Welcome to Programmable World, a podcast all about tech ventures, the stories behind them, and the wisdom gleaned from lessons learned. My name is Dan Ilett. I'm an ex-tech journalist, and today I help tech companies to go to market, raise their commercial value, and win more business. I've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world on storytelling, brand, launches, and sales, having launched a few of my own tech companies as well. I love hearing people's stories about how they contributed to their ventures and what they learned on the way. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a business leader, or interested in technology, Programmable World will ignite some sparks and get you thinking about what's possible. So I'm joined today by Daniel Cawrey, who I've known for about 10 years. I met Daniel when CoinDesk was just starting out, really. I was on the editorial side of things. I was hoping CoinDesk to get going. And Daniel wrote to us and said, please, can I write for CoinDesk? I'm really interested in the subject and so on. And we were really struggling to find writers at the time who knew anything about the topic, because it was pretty rare that people really, A, knew how to write, and B, knew anything about crypto and blockchain. So that was a really cool thing. So today we're going to talk a bit about what Daniel's been up to, some of his views on crypto and blockchain and so on, and some of the wider things that are going on in the tech market as well. So welcome, Daniel. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Dan. Thanks for having me. Yeah, good to catch up. Yeah, I remember it was 2013. I think it was spring 2013. And I didn't know you guys were struggling to find writers. I had no clue. I just sent you an email and I didn't expect you to get back to me, but you did. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, we were new, right? So we didn't really, we knew tech writers, but we didn't really have anyone who sort of knew crypto inside out. And we had people coming out the woodwork trying to do things. But I mean, it was an interesting time because, of course, at that time, Bitcoin, I think when I joined, Bitcoin was $65 or something. And, look where it is now. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, though. Crypto was very different back then. It was just Bitcoin.
Crypto was really different. So I was going to say, over the decade, what are the big things you've noticed that have really shifted?
Ethereum kind of came along. I wrote about Ethereum in 2014 for CoinDesk when it launched in Miami. That was just the announcement. And then the network went live in 2015. It wasn't super usable. You could start using smart contracts around 2016. And now, like today, we've got Bored Apes. Look at how evolutionary we are. We've gone from Bitcoin to Bored Apes is what we've gone. It's how we've evolved, Dan. And I joke when I say that because there are some interesting things that have happened, and not just Ethereum, like when you talk about Ether, the cryptocurrency, but Ethereum, the network, and the ability to build applications on top of cryptocurrency, I think is like the biggest thing that's really changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah, because at the time when we started out, it was still, there still is that debate. Is it useful? Is it not? How do you use it? Is there a use case? Is it just people trading on speculation and so on? But since then, you have got use cases. You have got some really interesting technology, and B, people using it for contracts, for negotiations, for, even things like databases, that smart, really intelligent databases. What really cool use cases have you seen where you would say there is an absolute place for this in the technology market?
Well, there's certainly an absolute place in some of like the decentralized finance stuff that's happening. So that's like using the Ethereum network to build cryptocurrency exchanges. So there's like decentralized exchanges where if you have a crypto wallet, you can swap different assets. You can swap your Ether for a stable coin like USDC or, the Uniswap coin, which is like the cryptocurrency of the decentralized exchange Uniswap. So you've got the ability to do exchange. There's also like collateral backed lending that is really interesting that people are using. And both of those things, I think, sort of build on this. Like we're seeing like a lot of interest in NFTs and gaming and like play to earn, which is what people are sort of colloquially calling Web3. Sort of a loaded term, but I just think that Web3 is sort of, from a user perspective, that's just like people using apps that have blockchains and cryptocurrency and NFTs and just make everything more interesting for users. That's kind of like the crux of what like dApps and Web3 is, which is where we're sort of at today. It's still kind of new, but I think over the next decade, it's going to be a really big deal.
Yeah. So what other websites do you tap into? Like, who are you working with now?
Yeah, so I consult with companies. They'll ask me for advice or they'll want me to advise. I try to keep that kind of like separate. If I have to write about anything, like I do have to disclose it. But Yeah, like whatever's interesting to me. Like right now, like some of the things that are really interesting to me are like specifically like DAOs and NFTs and sort of like the creator economy, I think is like really interesting. And it's sort of more where I'm kind of focused right now. But yeah, I mean, people reach out to me all the time. Like, I have a website. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Like, I'm very curious about the market and I like to talk to people. So, and that usually turns into like paid consulting work or something like that.
One of the best pieces of advice I had. So this is when I was a journalist student, and my teacher said to me, go and specialize in a subject. Go and find a topic that you can write. I got into IT security as well, actually. I used to write for SC magazine, and that's where I started. And because of that specialism, it was a lot easier to get the next job. It was the money was better. And actually, like you say, you'd get paid consultancy work from all over the place because people knew you're a specialist. Whereas like regular reporters who just cover the news, one day they could be out reporting about the weather. The next day it could be politics. The next day it could be sport. When they go freelance, or if there's job cuts, really, it's really hard for them to go and do anything like that because they can do shift work, right? And they can carry on doing that generalist stuff. But the specialism thing is the way, if you can create a brand and if you're known around a topic, it opens up so many opportunities, not just for writing, but business as well. For a while, I do mostly business now. I barely do any publishing stuff. This podcast is the first thing I've done in media for a few years. And I tell you, I'm really excited about it, but because I've missed it. But the advantage of having done stuff around sustainability, because that was my first publication, a bit around CoinDesk, and mostly just around enterprise tech in general and security and stuff, I still get people coming and saying, could you help with this? Could you do that? What about this? Can you help us go to market in this space? Because the people, the stories or the things that we need to say. But specialism has got to be like a specialism in technology, writing. It takes you so far. I know so many people have done so well from that as well. I think, today's writers, those who are specialists get a lot more opportunities coming their way for all kinds of things.
What's interesting is I wasn't somebody who was trained as a journalist. I didn't go to journalism school. I actually had an interest in pre-law when I was in school. So like I did develop as a writer, I think, as a result of that. The journalism reporting thing just happened because I had knowledge on information science and I was interested in crypto. I didn't really know how to be a journalist. I just kind of figured out how to do that. And I think that's what's different from me versus other reporters in this space and why I have my own newsletter is that I was always really good, even at CoinDesk, about writing really long, in-depth, either opinion pieces or reporting pieces. And so I've kind of translated that just into the next step, which is like book writing and having a newsletter and just trying to educate people about the subject.
Yeah. It's a really good thing to do because, you've obviously, you always have a product that's running in the background. And when people want to check you out or they're trying to learn something, people are learning about you at the same time as learning about subjects. It's a really good thing.
I think somebody said this to me a few months back and they're like, wow, it's really interesting. You actually have a product that you can sell in an age that, a lot of people, there isn't like physical product, and actually having a physical book, people love ebooks. They love audiobooks, which are not particularly physical, but people still like to buy and have books. Like I do read ebooks myself, but I also like to have I also read hard copies of things. And like, I think what's interesting is like in this world of everything is sort of digitized now, like there are products that people can still make that are physical that actually may have more meaning in a mostly digital world, that there's still like these physical objects that you can buy and collect, etc.
What do you get up to when you're not doing crypto related stuff?
I am working on fiction. I'm writing fiction books now. Like I said earlier, I have this series of space traveling blockchain frogs called Block Frogs that I developed. I'm also writing a fiction novel called Crypto Heist. Totally fictional. Yeah, that's sort of like a big fiction project that I'm working on. Outside of all that, I'm into music. So I write music. I guess as somebody who's really into fiction writing and ideas, like I like movies and TV. I've been watching a lot of Succession, which is like totally good, dark and hilarious.
Yeah.
It took me a while to realize that it's actually a dark comedy. Like I had to watch a couple of episodes and finally like, okay, you can't take any of this seriously. Like once I caught on to that, I was hooked.
the more the seasons have gone on, the darker, the more comedic it's become, but the darker it's become as well. I love that because it's quite serious the first season, really, and then it's just become funny.
I had to take a break. I had to take a break halfway through the second season, and I was like, I need to go watch something. This is starting to get like depraved. There's like some depravity. Like some of the people, like they're starting to lose their shit. Pardon my French.
Yeah,
like it's starting to happen. It's like I got to take a break from this for a while.
Because there's people out there that are sort of like that, right? And that's the freakiest, scariest thing about that show is people are so predatory. I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of psychopathic.
They're transactional.
They'll just do anything.
Okay. No, here's what they are, Dan. They are transactional, narcissistic psychopaths.
Yeah, narcissist. That's the right word.
The most important person is them, and others' adoration of them. And then they're also a transactional psychopath, meaning that they don't have any like compunction for human feelings or like emotions because they're all about the money. That's what
even though they pretend they do. It's incredible. Yeah. Have you got involved in any projects yourself and got behind anything?
So I do advisory stuff for companies. I write about stuff. I have a newsletter. I have a book coming out. I'm pretty agnostic on stuff though. So like I try not to put myself into a box. Like one really cool app that I've been using over the last probably 6 months that I'm going to write about in my newsletter, but I know a lot of people in crypto and they're just like, especially in this market, it's sort of a down market. They're like, crypto, I don't use that for anything. I don't use it in my daily life. But I've been using this app called StepIn actually, and it's a walk to earn just on your phone. You have to walk outside and you earn cryptocurrency. So like the method of mining for it is just you walking and it using the phone's GPS to verify that. So there's like really cool applications that are coming in terms of like gaming and like play to earn that I think like that's really going to take hold. And that's really like where millions to billions of people could really like actually start using this stuff.
Yeah, because it's been quite an exclusive club. It's tech savvy people, or it's people who kind of want to get rich quick, but it's never made it to mainstream because I guess like trust has been a thing, but actually transparency and actually really understanding what that use case is. But like you say, when you start to get mainstream applications out there that either put money in your pocket or they give you benefit or you don't even need to be mentioning the words crypto at that point and blockchain, right? Because they just enable people to do more things.
You're using the word mainstream a lot. And I would want to add that, despite like everything that happened with like COVID and lockdowns and all that, it seemed to have some kind of positive effect on people learning about crypto and driving the crypto market, sort of like what happened with Robinhood stocks, right? That sort of happened with crypto too. And it really led to the interest of things like Ether and Dogecoin and NFTs. And when you said this whole thing about mainstream, I'm thinking, well, okay, hold on a second. Now I can buy crypto through PayPal. Instagram has NFTs now. I feel like there's actually like Robinhood offers crypto, big brokers like Interactive Brokers in the US. So I'm saying all these things that are US based. So I apologize. I think you guys have like Revolut and stuff like that over across the pond.
My kids have got a thing called Go Henry, which is it's a kid's bank account, I think. It's a prepaid card. And it's a cool app because you can learn about, finance, you can learn about ISAs, you can, all kinds of different savings accounts. And one of the things you can do, my son came up to me the other day and said, Dad, what's Bitcoin? How does Bitcoin work? I can buy Bitcoin on this thing. And I'm like, Bitcoin's got there now, it's kind of in kids' pockets. So maybe it's me, maybe I'm just old school.
It's a little more mainstream than you think. Like, so your kid is a great example. So I got a buddy, he's a mechanic. He doesn't know anything about crypto. He's like, Daniel, I don't know anything about crypto, but here, look at my PayPal account. I have $25 of this stuff. Like, it was just like given to me. And so it's actually like a lot more prevalent than I think people realize. Like, again, I'm in the US, so like the numbers, I don't know what it is for like a Bitstamp, but like there's something like 20% of adults have a Coinbase account in the US. So like that's 1 out of 5 people. So, I mean, it ain't Coca-Cola, right? But it's, I mean, Coinbase was started 10 years ago. So Coca-Cola is like 10 years old or something.
I had at one point, I had pretty much all the wallets you could get, right? And, at that point, it was really difficult to actually even buy Bitcoin. Now, it couldn't be easier. You can just, you can get hold of it. You can even spend it in some places. Places will take it. But I suppose when I talk about mainstream, It's probably harder to spend than you would like. I guess it's still something you transfer for other areas of value and so on.
So there's like a chicken and egg thing there I want to add to, though, is like there are things that people are buying with crypto, but the biggest thing is usually NFTs. And like an example of like what has happened to Coinbase in the last 10 years is like, I saw an NFT I wanted yesterday. I needed some ether to buy it. I just went to Coinbase. I did an instant buy. I was able to instantly send the ether. And so like within 5 minutes, I had this NFT I wanted, even though I didn't have any crypto. So like these rails are really like super improving, and it's like instant gratification that I think often comes with like other apps, like in the gambling industry or gaming. Like it's coming to crypto too. It's like the rails are speeding up.
Yeah, it's definitely getting more sophisticated. So am I right? So you have 2 books out now.
So I wrote a book called Mastering Blockchain, and that was published through O'Reilly, which is a technical book publisher. And that came out in December of 2020. It's got code in it, and it's more for like computer science developers. Like Duke uses it for their Blockchain 101 course. That's the book that Dr. Jimmy Lenz uses for that course.
You have a coding background, right?
I do, yeah. So I have an information science background. I started my career as a programmer, and then I went into information security. Before I got into crypto, I was an information security consultant in Washington, D.C. And I was looking at Bitcoin charts in D.C. when it was like $12, thinking, man, I don't know how much more of this consulting I want to do. And it hit $100. And then I found CoinDesk, and CoinDesk was a really interesting experience to start out with because I met like all of the early people. You know, I met Vitalik, I met from Ethereum, I met Charlie Lee from Litecoin. Yeah, I did a lot of reporting, and I moved from DC to Silicon Valley, and it was like I always wanted to be in Silicon Valley, but I had this CoinDesk email, so it was like I went to all the great events, and startup founders would invite me to stuff. I'd do interviews, I'd speak at things. I started a meetup. Like it was really good. Yeah.
I still get people reaching out to me about CoinDesk now on LinkedIn. I probably get two people a week saying, can I talk to you about my new thing? You know, I've got like this product, I've got this thing. And I mean, I haven't done anything in it for years, right? It is the buzz about CoinDesk though, in terms of what it generates. But so you did Mastering Blockchain book. The next book then, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I was just sort of going into this whole talk about like Mastering Blockchain is really like a technical book. And a lot of people, like my family, my friends, you know, I'd get them signed copies of this book, you know, like some of them would read it. And I started thinking, maybe I should write something a little bit easier. So what I have is something called Understanding Crypto. It's less than 200 pages. I'm trying to do it like astrophysics in a hurry. I do put some stories about myself in there. In addition to that, I also have realized that young adults need some kind of education around blockchain. So I actually have started a book series about a space frog that travels via blockchain. It's called Block Frogs. The first one is actually coming out next week. So I'm doing all of this sort of like blockchain education and writing stuff because I just always get asked. I get asked so many questions, and it's like, I finally was just like, oh, I need to start writing books about this stuff. There's just a need for this. Like, there are a lot of great books out there about crypto already, and I'm just putting my hat in the ring.
You know, I get asked loads of stuff, and I don't know anywhere near as much as you do about this, which is kind of why I wanted to catch up with you, really, and sort of see what you're.
I'm a big reader. I mean, like I said before, I think maybe I said this before we got on the air, but I'm just a regular reader of CoinDesk. I read CoinDesk. I read Decrypt. I read Bloomberg. I read Fortune Crypto. Like I just read all the crypto stuff, and I'm fascinated by it still after 10 years. And so it's actually easier for me to just write the book than to have to do. I mean, I will do a lot of podcasts, but I can't do thousands of them. Right. So like, I feel like the books give people entertainment and education around this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you see coming next, right? I guess, you know, even blockchain's sort of moving on, but in the crypto space as well, you said Ethereum's coming along, then there's new coins, there's new ways to manage currency and actually applications for currency, more importantly. You know, what's really taking your interest right now?
What's really interesting is sort of there's like this ecosystem that's building around blockchains and crypto. And what I mean by that is like the best way to compare it is sort of like what happened with social media, right? Like it used to be like really hard to start a blog or like to talk about your thoughts on the internet before social media. Like you'd have to have your own web page. You'd have to probably know some HTML, CSS, and just to get like the word out. Now, social media sort of flattened all that. Now I feel like what's happening with like in crypto is like money is sort of being flattened down to like this layer where we can use it, like we can build on top of social media now, right? So we can have social media, but also like people can get tipped. People can get small amounts of value for their work on the internet. They don't have to go through a big internet tech company, for all of their clicks. Like YouTube might be an example of this, right? Like taking creators to the next level, I think is like where this is all going. I'm a creator myself, so like I'm pretty fascinated with micropayments and NFTs and communities that people can build on the internet that are their own and isn't just through like a big company portal where I think like, I don't want to say too much about the big tech companies. I think Facebook might be a great example of this. Is like a lot of businesses have like a lot of their business stuff locked into a Facebook page. These are like small businesses, right? But now they're like totally locked into this whole Facebook diaspora that they don't have any control over, and that Facebook can change anytime. Like we all know that Facebook has made a lot of controversial changes. I think like the split between the app and the messenger was one of the most controversial they did. That, they'll do whatever they need to do for their own business interests and not those of others, really. So I think crypto and the new sort of like blockchain and cryptocurrency, like portals and protocols, can sort of give more control back to people and creators in general on the internet.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've seen a couple of people I know whose businesses almost fell over overnight when Facebook made a bunch of changes and, or locked them out of their accounts or whatever. They put all their faith into a platform that effectively, like you say, they didn't really have the control of. So, just going back to good old fashioned tricks of like websites and emails and sort of basic social media, that's benefiting a lot of people. But like you say, again, the creator market, there's so many good creators out there. I mean, you just have to look at Substack. I mean, the Substack you write, right? I mean, that's a great product. And I was looking through some others the other day. After you sent it over, I was like, I need to get into this more. I'd seen it before. I'd explored it before, but I hadn't really gone into it in as much detail as I should have done.
So I opened a Substack in 2019. I didn't touch it for 3 years. So yeah, November 2022, I was like, I'm going to start doing this Substack thing, see how it goes. Like, and my biggest regret is that I didn't do it sooner. It's actually so rewarding to write to people, and I just kind of write what I want. I write weekly. It's called Reverie. I'm sure you can just share it with the listeners, but it's just stuff about crypto that you probably won't find on CoinDesk or Decrypt or something. Like it's just whatever my unique thoughts are. Like I have something coming out this week about the crypto job market. Like I interviewed a crypto recruiter about, hey, how's this going? Like with all these layoffs and everything. So I do interviews, I do book reviews. Yeah. I mean, some of it's to promote my own books, of course, but like it's, again, I have to say, I wish I had started doing the Substack so much earlier. The thing is, you got to just start and you got to keep at it and you got to really like to write, which is like, I'm okay with that. So,
but yeah. So listen, so I want to ask you a bit more about where the governments, I guess, sit with some of the stuff that's happening right now. Because again, going back to CoinDesk, when we first started out, it was one of the big multi-government get-togethers. And the guys who were really trying to push Bitcoin were sort of trying to push the agenda that Bitcoin was there to be looked at and to be kind of, it was there to kind of disrupt what was going on with government finances and global money movement. Where are they now? Are they in tune with what's really happening? Is it useful to them? Is it a threat to them? And are they trying to control it in some way?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Actually, one of the reasons why I started my Substack is I was really angry about the FTX stuff in November. And I remember I submitted something to CoinDesk that, it was like an angry opinion post that I had. And they were so busy with the FTX stuff, they didn't even respond.
Can you just talk about what that was?
Oh, so FTX is like this exchange that fell apart. The thing that was interesting about them is they had a lot of sponsors. They had a lot of famous athletes. They had, an arena named after them. They had spent a lot of money acquiring a lot of power, which it was just like a house of cards. But anyway, so what does government have to do with FTX, right? So this whole thing collapsed and, it's been an interesting follow, but the reality is in the US, what's happened is there are a lot of people that have lost money. because FTX just imploded. Those people are complaining to their representation in Congress or the House of Representatives. Therefore, representatives and congressmen and women are getting a lot of phone calls and complaints about crypto. So now this is how America works: is the top of the line complaints. That's what, they want to stay in office. So like they work on the top of the line complaints. And right now it's, what are you going to do about this guy who like stole all this money from us? And so it's a big focus. And like, I know there's a lot of rumblings going on, particularly in the US, about regulation. And I think that's going to be tied into the US banking, how that's all going to like interact with crypto in the future. Cause I think Biden even said something about how crypto could be a threat to the regular financial system or whatever, it's certainly a possibility given like what has happened with something like NFTX, which was just sort of like, it did very well when the markets were speculative and Bitcoin was worth $70,000. But when the markets are not doing well, there's a cash crunch. There's leverage in the high times, and then, people got to pay the bill, so to speak, when things go down. So like, I think government activity, particularly this year and next, is going to be profound and bring in rules. And I don't think it's the worst thing, but it's not going to be painless.
Yeah, it's happened a few times, hasn't it? There have been things that have fallen over that have cost people dear. I think Mt. Gox was the first one that won.
And to just add to that one very quickly, Mt. Gox, I'm glad you brought that up. Because of Mt. Gox and its headquarters in Japan has some of the strictest crypto regulatory rules in the world. So onerous that Kraken and Coinbase used to have divisions there. Because of the down market, they both closed their Japanese operations. It's too expensive to operate in Japan. So I think they've basically left it to I can't remember what the local exchanges are there, but basically left to the locals, and, Japanese only can use those platforms, and very regulated. What's fortunate about the US and I think in the UK is the UK's got Bitstamp, been around for a long time, focused on regulation. The US has Coinbase and Kraken and Gemini. So there are some like good exchanges out there that are going to focus on regulations, and there's accessibility for people in a regulated manner for crypto.
Are you still in Silicon Valley? Is that where you're based now?
I'm in Nevada, which is nearby. It's just with the lockdowns, Nevada was less locked down than California.
Right. Yeah. We got a pretty healthy startup economy here. There's some very good tech companies coming out. And the trouble we have here is the investment. There's not really a culture of like good VC and risk taking here. And people will tell you till they're blue in the face that is happening. I just don't see it. The VCs here, they behave more like banks than they do like real risk takers. What's it like over there in the crypto space? Are VCs pretty bullish about investing?
It feels like it's less concentrated in Silicon Valley these days. Certainly after the pandemic, like, or even during it, like a lot of people left. You still have like the big firms like out there, like you've got the Sequoias and the A16Zs and so on and so forth. But like investors have moved all over, like Puerto Rico for tax reasons, Florida for tax reasons, Austin, Texas for tax reasons, New York for I don't know what reason, just probably finance, I think. So it's kind of all spread out. Like I haven't spent as much time in Silicon Valley recently. Like I am going to launch my book there in June in Sunnyvale and see how that kind of goes. I hear things are kind of coming back, but I don't think they're ever going to be as concentrated as they once were.
Right. Yeah. So the question, are you seeing a lot of crypto or just emerging technologies coming through that are getting backed by these guys? And maybe not just Silicon Valley investors, I mean sort of more just VCs. Are the VCs getting behind companies well enough? Is there a lack of intent to get behind? I mean, like I say, over here it's very different. People are much more risk averse, I think.
Well, the best venture capitalists, the best investors, they work over such a long time frame that it's like a 10 to 15 year time frame, right? So like they're all sitting on funds raised whenever. They're usually always fundraising. And so they always have deployable capital and funds because they're running off these long time frames. And so actually, I think investors like these kind of time periods better because I think what people always forget about investors is they're actually trying to look for the best deal possible, right? And when you've got crazy markets and crazy skyrocketing valuations, it's a little bit more like high school fads, and people are spending way too much money on fashion, so to speak. And so you don't actually get the best deals when everything is super hot. This is why you'll see like big investors, they'll go back for another round at a different time because they're actually getting a better deal. And maybe they got into that Series A at a 1 billion valuation just to get their feet wet. So then when, there's a downturn, you're at a $750 million valuation, they can get a good deal. And that's how investors really think about it. They just don't really talk about that. Like, the one thing about tech investors is like, they do like to portray a particular image of, tech saving the world and this holistic idea of everything. That's all fine and great. But I think what people always need to like understand is these are savvy investors that are running funds for their limited partners. And they're going to try to get the best deal possible, or even just say no if they don't like an entrepreneur or they don't like the deal that's on the table.
Daniel, it's been brilliant talking to you. Great stuff. All right. Well, listen, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Programmable World podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. To find out more about the podcast, our guests and the topics we cover, head over to programmable.world to subscribe to our newsletter or have a look at our company at tellejo.com. That's TOLLEJO.com. Have a good day.